The disciplined mind then becomes a powerful tool in its own right, enabling the practitioner to become aware of the subtle energies of the body, then master them through the breathing and physical postures known as yogas. Modern Western medicine has documented the mental powers of these meditation masters. One such practice, Tumo, was developed for generating body heat in the icy caves of Tibet. Yogis who have mastered Tumo are capable of immersing themselves in icy lakes and, 15 minutes later, producing visible steam rising from their robes.
Tumo is a teaching that is strict and not one that is freely dispensed to whoever wishes to receive it. However, our environment and the time are very different now. So, backed by loving kindness and compassion, I am now showing it. And to me, it's not a violation of our yogic vows. Tumo is a practice that will bring about bliss and happiness, psychological as well as physical. The visualization is a lot simpler. When you visualize yourself as a fully blown up balloon that is hollow, then you visualize a little object inside you, glowing and generating heat. It is a very useful tool to help oneself and heal oneself.
Other yogas were designed to benefit bodily health and to improve the length and quality of one's precious lifetime. While many basic yogas have been taught in the West for years, many of the more difficult and exotic yogas have been kept secret to preserve their purity. One such practice, Trulkor, was developed for opening the wind channels of the body, the pathways of energy associated with breathing. Through the practice of Trulkor, the yogi is able to improve breathing functions, help the body release toxins, and clear the mind. The filming of this demanding practice was permitted with great reluctance.
In order to learn this thoroughly, it takes at least 2 years. But then you cannot leave it at that. You must do the practice all the time. Unless I'm traveling, I do the exercise 2 hours every day. And now I have one request. This is a very secret practice, so I must ask you to advise the viewer to not try to imitate me. If they do, there is a danger for their health and well-being. Because this is so secret, we must learn it from a particular teacher who can give the teaching from the beginning to the end thoroughly.
The yogi who has spent years practicing and has gained a high degree of mastery over both mind and body is said to have achieved a high level of attainment, to have become a highly realized being. Their powers are sometimes said to extend into the realm of the paranormal. Such supernatural stories have swirled around the Tibetan yogis throughout their history, thickening the cloud of mystery surrounding them. Tales of telepathic communication and mind-controlling matter are reported among advanced practitioners to this day.
The highly realized yogis can, of course, alter situations. There are many instances where the highly realized beings altered natural disasters. One example is where Chinese soldiers came to cause harm to a monastery or its inhabitants. All of a sudden, the change of weather, extreme poor visibility, the falling of hail, making it absolutely impossible for these people to come to their destination. There are so many different instances, far too many to narrate. There is a most wonderful and sacred meditation cave where it is said Guru Padma Sambhava meditated. I went there when I was only a boy, but I had a tremendous amount of devotion. When looking across the cave, I really felt like saying some prayers. I offered 3 prostrations and said, "Please show me some sign so that my devotions will further become stronger." And instantly there appeared a rainbow at the mouth of the meditation cave, and there I saw Guru Padma Sambhava. So I was just overwhelmed and really so very happy. And all my focus was on the mouth of the cave and Guru Padma Sambhava. There were a lot of nuns with me, and one of them said to me, "Rinpoche, Rinpoche, watch your foot. It is sinking in the stone." And I had to look, and there was my foot, making an imprint in solid rock, because it was really, just as the nun said, it was sinking. At the age of 3, I was able to tell my previous lives. I was able to name my former sister. But now suppose I told you that I can remember all my former lives. Is anyone going to believe me? Therefore, just let's say that I was able to remember when I was a little boy.
Such paranormal powers among master yogis are thought to include the ability to self-govern the process of transition from one life to the next.
This is very often you can see in many good practitioners. Most of the people die. After die, you can change your face, the yellow, pale, and when you do the pinch in your skin, also they will stay there. But the real practitioner who has when the passing and the meditation state, they continue their stay. Then you pinch in here, this also like now, and they immediately going like this. And also they have a little bit heat and warm and heart center. Also the face is like the lamp light, and very unusual one. And happened that my story is just 1 year ago, and Bhutan, one of Master Ginjun Rinchen. So he stayed more than 1 month, and they never changed.
For aspiring yogis, events such as these imply control over the process of reincarnation. Even His Holiness the Dalai Lama has stated that if the Chinese communists are still governing Tibet at the time of his death, he will choose rebirth outside of Tibet. Controlling the process of one's own death and rebirth is the subject of some of the most fascinating stories surrounding Tibet's yogis. Lama Drupon Samten recalls vividly one such event in his early years as a student, the death of his own teacher, Kemgor Rinpoche.
This is my teacher, Kyungkar Rinpoche. He invited all the students. He told he's going to pass away. No illness, nothing sign of death, nothing. He just normally get up, do his prayer, and he told his attendant to make a good tea. And then he make a tea over and over and until he's satisfied. And he says, all this prayer together. And when he get to the completion state, he says, this is the time for me to pass away. And just like a falling asleep, like a Buddha, no? Just he put his right hand under his chest and then lie down and look at each person. No, he's doing prayer for each person to benefit in the future. And he passed away.
Telling stories such as these, indeed revealing any technique, tradition, or experience to someone who has not completed yogic training, was once a violation of yogic vows to extreme secrecy. The reason was to maintain the purity of the teachings. The fear was that, taken out of context, exotic forms of yoga and meditation might degenerate into ego-centered showmanship. And in the eyes of the elders, the opening up that is taking place now is seen as a significant risk. When His Eminence Drulong Rinpoche was asked about the cutting of his hair, a practice known to signify that a yogi is preparing to die, he displayed the stubborn elusiveness of a yogi under strict vow.
There are many reasons why a person in retreat would grow hair. Let me think about it. Yeah, there are many reasons why one would grow one's hair long. Let's just forget about it, shall we? A good number of things happened to me. It will just boil down to misleading people. Forget it. You know, I just cut it because I am old, and the hair was really hefty and weighing me down. That's why I chopped it off. I have pledged not to mislead people. Now, if I told you a whole lot of tall tales, that will amount to misleading the audience. I have absolutely nothing whatsoever, and I have nothing to tell you. This is the first time I have been asked to tell about these things. We are not supposed to reveal the ins and outs of what goes on inside a meditation cave. If we do, then there will be consequences. The past masters, including Tilopa, have categorically said there was never an instance where he revealed the secrets of meditation. We who follow in their footsteps must do the same.
Although it is known that Drulong Rinpoche did cut his hair in preparation for death, His Holiness the Dalai Lama asked him to live a little longer to help pass on and preserve Tibetan teachings. It is said that His Eminence agreed to do so, and has decided to live until the age of 100 to help his people. Beyond feats of mental, physical, or even supernatural control, perhaps the most impressive accomplishment of the Tibetan yogis is maintaining a stance of compassion and peace through a half-century of persecution. The teachings of loving your enemies and praying for those who persecute you are familiar in the West, but are, few would argue, among the hardest to practice. Skeptics may well point out that feelings of love and peace may be easily generated when you're by yourself in a cave, but not when you're coping with the human conflict inherent in real life. Yet, the claims of the Tibetan yogis have been put to the extreme test in the Chinese Holocaust. How does one retain compassion in the face of raw cruelty?
Some use the ancient the text stated or says, the one's own enemy is the best teacher. Now, one example. So one old monk who in previously the Namgyal monastery, one monk of the Namgyal monastery. Now he spent almost 18 years in Chinese Gulag. after 59. So after he released from the camp, eventually he joined with me here. So then one day I casually asked about his experience in the Gulag. Then he told me a few occasions he faced some danger. And I asked, what kind of danger? I thought danger of his life or something like that. Then he answered me, danger of losing compassion towards Chinese. So that's we as a practitioner, we deliberately should try to keep compassionate attitude towards one's own enemy is very essential.
I don't blame the people of China. I blame their policy or their culture because it's a communist culture. The culture is at fault, not the people. In the ways of what we call samsaric beings, in the ways of the ordinary people, lay people, if I followed that, yes, obviously, yes, there would be sadness in my heart. And there were a lot of sufferings that were brought about to a lot of people and to myself. But as a practitioner who believes in the cause and effect, I'm a very, very happy person. I have no grudge against anybody. I have no grudge against the Chinese people or the Chinese government. Whatever befell on an individual, it was because of his past karma. Unhappiness does not crop up out of nowhere. It is a result of one's commission of negative karma in former lives. For example, when you cheated others, when you tried to defeat others, when you try to gain at the cost of others, these result in what we call the ripening of karma that brings about pain and suffering. So when you do negative deeds, the result is a state of mind that is often referred to as hell. When you have done positive deeds, it brings about happiness. I was born after the Chinese operation in Tibet. I am upset with them, and I am sad because the Chinese have been very ruthless to Tibetan people and my family. You name it, they have done it. At the same time, they have destroyed so many monasteries in Tibet. Maybe it is because I am still young and my practice is not strong enough yet. Maybe this is why I am upset with the Chinese. As an antidote to conquering very strong negative emotions, we would resort to doing the sevenfold Vairocana posture meditation. There are different wind energies inside a human person. In one posture, the wind which enables us to excrete waste enters into the central nerve channel, eliminating some of the negative emotions. When you broaden your shoulders and sit upright, the nerve or vein-related winds enter and get rid of ignorance. When your neck is slightly bent downwards at an angle, and you touch the tip of your tongue on the palate, then fire-related wind enters and dissipates desire. When you lower your eye a bit so you almost see the tip of your nose, the space-related wind enters and gets rid of egocentric pride. When you sit cross-legged and remain in single-pointed concentration, then water-related wind enters and helps get rid of jealousy. These postures are a very good method of getting rid of some of the negative emotions.
Our newer generations of Tibetans raised exclusively in exile, immersed in contemporary culture, displaying the discipline and compassion of their elders. Evidence of cultural erosion is appearing among younger Tibetans in exile. Demonstrations and violent protests are becoming increasingly common in refugee towns. Some are beginning to question the pacifist approach of their leader. Even so, the spirit of their native culture remains strong, and some still aspire to the example of past masters.
In our life, we do many different things, we are in different professions, but we all have a single goal, and that is to be happy. And the only way to be happy is to believe in one's own mind that it can be happy, that it has happiness all the time. And that is very important to know, that is very important to notice. If we fail to notice that, then we start to expect external materials to make us happy. In our life, we change different things in the hope of being happy. We change our name, we change our dress, we change our food, we change everything. But we realize every time that this change has never brought the true happiness. So the only way to stop all this game is realizing the nature of mind, which is a Buddha and which is content and fulfilled and satisfied from the beginning. So although I still have desire, I still lack all the material things, deep down in my heart I often feel that this is not the real way of happiness.
Yet even the most earnest efforts of these young practitioners cannot maintain the tradition of the yogis as it once was. The number of authentic elders dwindles daily. The best the younger generation can do is preserve the practices of their ancestors, the shadows of a total lifestyle that will never again be possible. This observation by His Holiness the 14th Dalai Lama points to the irony of the Chinese Holocaust. Intent on destroying Tibetan culture, the Chinese have in fact successfully driven it out into the world. It is seen in a phenomenon that began shortly after the invasion and continues today. Once the most reclusive people in the world, the master yogis of Tibet have begun to migrate westward. As hope of reclaiming their native land fades, they are relocating to establish temples and teaching centers.
Now the Buddhism is developed in West, so we have centers from South America, from Chile to North America to Canada, and we also have Baltic countries, in Central Asia, we have maybe 40 centers more than. So we have to also properly guide the Buddha's teaching.
It is in one way, a very difficult situation in Tibet today, and it's been that way for many years. But from that, we have so many wonderful teachers and examples that have come to the United States, Europe, and different countries to make Buddhism available to us.
One day His Holiness the Dalai Lama called me down and said, well, this is time now. It is time for you to actually come out of retreat. And now your time has come to benefit all beings. Listening to that advice, I ended my retreat. And from that day onwards, to this day, I have visited so many countries, and I have taught so many countless number of people. And it was absolutely as His Holiness said. I benefited so many people, and I keep on going strong. Now, since I came to the United States, it has gone 5 years. The job of all Dharma practitioners is to help other beings. In countries like India and Nepal, there are many lamas, and teachings are readily available to the population. And this case does not apply in the United States and other Western countries. The main point of the teachings is the generation of loving kindness and compassion. And I hope to help people in the United States and teach them loving kindness and compassion.
Arizona has become home to one such center. a growing facility where Tibetan yogi Garchen Rinpoche guides the teachings. Now, where the adobe dwellings of Native Americans once stood, clusters of retreat huts, temples, and teaching rooms hug the rugged terrain of the Chino Valley. In them gather people from all walks of Western life, from many faith traditions, there to learn what wisdom this ancient people might have for a weary modern society.
Well, I think the general society now has so many influences which are rather superficial in nature. And even though we theoretically have a lot of extra time, more and more I think people are finding that the different distractions and things that they do are not particularly meaningful to them. And so they're searching for something else to give their life meaning.
Here we saw all the technology. We see all the rich people. We have all the money. We can, whatever you want, the food, Chinese, all these different, you can get. But then people find out that having material, having technology is really not answer your inner question and not fulfill ultimate goal. And therefore, they have this kind of spirituality. I would say human society, there's love and compassion is the only way to bring peace and happiness.
Garchen Rinpoche teaches patience a lot. Like, your worst enemies are your greatest teachers because they teach you patience. They teach you definite patience. And during school and when I'm at home, like, I have a 2-year-old little next door neighbor and he just gets on my nerves all the time. And so it's like, it gives me a lot of patience to practice. If I have a bad day, it makes me think about my bad day, reflect on my bad day, and there's a part that you should do every night. Like, you think of 2 things that you did bad in that day and try to fix them the next day, and then you think of 2 things that you did good that day and you try to do them the next day as well.
I think it's very bad, it's very sad that we're losing yogis and we're losing someone who can connect us with our own enlightened nature. And from other point, those realized masters that comes here and comes to other countries can teach other people, and it was not possible before. And even there are so many people who even would not think about Buddhism until they would meet realized master.
Just looking at our lamas that we have, like His Holiness, the Dalai Lama, and many wonderful Western lamas, when you look at them, you get some true feeling that they really have some kind of inner peace. And if we could receive those teachings from the yogis and put them into practice in our own lives, that is the way to save. That is the only way to save the lineage of the Tibetan yogis, and that's the most important thing to do, I think. Yeah.
The lamas who have come to the West are still adapting to the pathways and parameters of this new life. And their questions remain. Will the filming and sharing of techniques lead to abuses? Will self-styled lamas and bogus practitioners exploit Western interest in Tibetan Buddhism and mislead people? Is the form of their faith destined to dissolve in the ways of the West? The devotees of the Dharma hold that even if the tradition of the yogis and other outward expressions of Tibetan Buddhism die out completely, the teachings of the Buddha will survive.
Because of the Chinese occupation, it is extremely difficult to have the same amount of yogis coming either inside Tibet or outside. The number of yogis has definitely decreased, and it is difficult to see whether we will have the same amount in the future. According to the things that have taken place in Tibet, and according to the prevailing circumstances, it would seem that the tradition of the yogis will come to an end. If not come to an end, it will near extinction. However, we are very confident that whenever there is a dip in the progress of the Buddha's teachings, there will be a proportionate recovery. So in that respect, I have faith that we will recover from it.
Will Tibetan Buddhism thrive in its new soil? Can people who do not experience the daily hardships of the native Tibetans, Westerners who lived enveloped in material comfort, ever fully embrace a philosophy based on escaping earthly suffering? Or has material success left a big enough void of its own to drive the Western mind inward for solace? Even for those who seek to follow the example of the Tibetan elders, the human environment is drastically different. They are striving to train their minds, sustain intensive meditation, and maintain a disciplined compassion for their fellow humans, not in sheltered enclaves, but while living and working in the frenetic grip of a 24-hour society. Can any philosophy of compassion and non-violence be successfully practiced in the crucible of modern life? For now, the answers to these questions remain as mysterious as the minds of the master yogis themselves, living remnants of an ancient and vanishing civilization, human artifacts from the Tibet that once was.